And we'll stand for the singing of O Canada. O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all our sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Thanks, everyone. Record of attendance, Lindsay has that. No absent with regrets. Any declarations of conflict of interest, anyone? And certainly you can declare at the time of the agenda item. Approval of agenda. Any additions or deletions? I'm going to add 12A. I'm going to put Halloween. Go ahead, somebody. Okay, hang on there. Jeff, I gotta, don't know. Mine. Nope. Nope. He's gonna fix it. So it's only been 8 years. Go ahead, Councillor Wade.
Okay, I have an addition, crosswalks at the Yarmouth Elementary School.
Okay, so that's under 12B, crosswalks. Anybody else, additions or deletions? I am looking for an approval of the agenda with the additions. Councillor Don, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Questions called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thanks, folks. We have approval of minutes, please. Committee of the Whole, September 23rd. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Don. Discussion? Questions called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Town Council meeting, September 23rd, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Jim. Don called for the question. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. And we had a special town council on September 30th, please. Moved by Councillor Don, second by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Questions called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thanks, folks. Business arising. Council meetings bylaw, second reading. Go ahead, CAO.
Your Worship, that amendment is concerning the removal of the names of the mover and seconder of motions at council meetings. And so where it is second reading, we've received no submissions from the public. A motion to approve second reading would be in order.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Don. Any discussion? Questions called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. And we have swimming pool bylaw, second reading. Go ahead, CAO.
Your Worship, this is an amendment to the land use bylaw regarding swimming pool and specifically fencing. This does require, I believe this does require or allow for a public hearing where the public can speak to it. So if there's anyone present, it would be appropriate to call for anyone who wishes to speak and then entertain second reading.
Okay.
Sorry, motion for second reading.
All right, so with regard to the swimming pool bylaw, the second reading, I would ask if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this issue to come forward. I would ask again, would anybody like to speak to this issue? And a third and final time, would anyone like to speak to this issue? Okay, hearing none, I can call for the question on the motion? Or I need the motion first. Okay, Councillor Don, second by Councillor Steve. Questions called. Was there any discussion, anyone? Okay, questions called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. 221 Forestry update. Go ahead, CAO.
Your Worship, an update was requested at our last meeting on the activities around 221 4th Street. That's a property on which Council approved an order to be issued for compliance with the possible remedy, if not complied with, for demolition. And you can see from the Administrator's memo the activities that have occurred concerning that property. And I did speak with the property owner last week, the neighbor who was a complainant concerning the condition of that property last week, and I think we had a reasonably good conversation. I don't know that he was completely satisfied, but I explained to him our process and how we would proceed, and
Excuse me.
I think it ended well. I don't know if he had any contact with anyone else subsequent to that, but one thing I did explain to him is that it was evident to the building inspector and to us that the property, which is there's an issue with an estate, and so it's a little bit tangled up, but the person taking responsibility for the property, let's say, has spent some money and obviously values the property to some degree more than perhaps the neighbor who made the complaint believes it should be valued, but you know, it is the property owner's responsibility to live up to the conditions of keeping the property safe and reasonably well kept. And recently, this person seems to have taken responsibility. So we'll continue to monitor, and if further action is warranted, we will take further action.
Go ahead there, Councillor Jim.
Jeff, I noticed there was 11 steps, whatever you want to call it, from August 14, 2018 to most currently, September 25th, 2020. Are you saying that we're at this point finished and we'll wait that the...
No, I'm not saying we're finished. I'm saying that the property owner has taken steps and is taking steps to remedy the conditions that were brought to his attention by the administrator and building official, and if he completes those things and continues to maintain the property to a degree that it isn't dangerous or unsightly, then we'll have achieved what the intention of the bylaw is. Thank you, Jeff.
Anybody have any questions for the CAO in this one? We're good? Okay, thank you for the update. New business, audited financial statements. So Gloria's here with Grant Thornton. Welcome, Gloria.
Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Good to go.
Thank you. So everybody should have a copy of the financial statements. And so I have met with your audit committee, and we've gone through these statements in detail. So I'm just going to give a high-level overview tonight, but please feel free if you have questions. I'm here to answer those. As well, at the audit committee meeting, we would have also presented our report on how the audit went, and discussion was had on that as well. So these are the consolidated financial statements, which means that they aren't just the operations of the town of Yarmouth. They are the operations of the town, as well as all of the subsidiaries that are jointly controlled and managed. So that would include your proportionate share of the Mariner Center, the Industrial Commission, the airport, YASTA, Solid Waste Management Authority, and the Waterfront Development Corporation. So all of those entities are combined together to present you this financial statement. And so I'm going to go directly to page 1, which is our independent auditor's report. So this is our report to you. So it is a clean audit opinion. We didn't find anything while we conducted our audit that would cause us to have to modify our opinion. So the first paragraph is just the introduction. So these are the financial statements for March 31st, 2020. The second paragraph is actually our opinion, which is that the accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the town of Yarmouth as at March 31st, 2020, and the results of its operations and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. And that's the framework that you fall under. In terms of the paragraph about the basis of opinion, that just describes to you that we are required to follow Canadian standards when we do our audit, and that we apply our audit processes consistently across all of our clients. We do have an other matter paragraph, which just indicates that there are pages at the back of these financial statements which aren't mandatory to be included with audited financial statements, but they do provide the reader with additional information on the operations of your water utility. So we do include those, but they are subjected to audit in a different way than your overall financial statements. The next section is on the responsibility of management and those charged with governance. So it is management's responsibility to prepare these financial statements in accordance with the public sector accounting standards, to set the system of internal controls that they feel is appropriate in the circumstances to make sure that your financial data is being properly accumulated throughout the year. And then also they have to make an assessment on what we call the going concern assumption, which just means that you're able to realize your assets to pay out your liabilities in the future. And then those charged with governance are responsible for overseeing the town's internal reporting processes. On page 2, this details what the auditor's responsibilities are. And so our goal is to obtain what we call reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. So that will be our goal. But it goes on to say that it's not a 100% guarantee that there couldn't still be an error in the financial statements. We obviously can't audit every transaction. So there still is the potential that there could be an error. But in terms of how we mitigate that risk to the lowest possible amount that we can get to, is the first step is we identify and assess the areas that might have the highest risk that there could be a material misstatement, and that's where we focus the most of our audit efforts, in those areas that have the highest risk. Then we have to understand how your internal control processes work. We do not have to audit them in Canada, but we do have to understand how they operate. That way we can make recommendations if there's room for improvements in those processes. We have to evaluate your accounting policies. So first of all, we look at them to make sure that they fall within the acceptance of the public sector accounting standards. And secondly, that you're actually following your own internal processes and your accounting policies. We also conclude on management's assessment of the going concern. We must make sure that we agree with their assessment. We evaluate the overall presentation of these financial statements, not just the financial numbers at the beginning, but also the notes at the back. And then because they are consolidated and all the other subsidiaries are brought together in this one statement, we must assess the financial results of the subsidiaries as well, and to make sure that they've also had an audit or a review as well. And so then our conclusion and dated today, hopefully the day that council approves the financial statements. Page 3. Under public sector accounting standards, management is also required in writing to take responsibility for these financial statements. And so this is their page. I won't go over it, but it basically outlines their responsibility. So page 4 is what we call the statement of operations. So these are your revenues and your expenses for the year. And you can see that the budget column is first and the actual for 2020, and then we compare it to the 2019 actual. And so this budget does take into consideration the proportionate budget of each one of the subsidiaries as well as the towns. So they're all added together, so it will look a little bit different than the budget that you would have set at the beginning of the year for rate setting purposes. And so it is obviously going to be higher than what you originally set. So if we just look at it in total, your original budget was set at $20,924,231. You came in at $20,258,500. So you're about $665,000 less than your budget, and it really lies in one line item, and it's called conditional transfers from other governments. You had set an original budget of $1,974,023, and you came in at $1,387,041. And that budget line item is always a guess because it really depends on the capital projects that you're going to be able to undertake and complete during the year. So when you had originally set your capital budget, you had planned to be further along with the ferry terminal and some of the projects that were done after year end in terms of the streets and roads that you were working on. So they were planned to happen at the end of March 2020, but they didn't quite get there. So that's why your revenue number would be less. But you'd also see that your capital expenditures are less as well. And then also if we compare to the prior year, Your total revenue was $19,747,587. So you're up about $510,000 over the prior year. And that pretty much lies in that same line, that conditional transfer line, because that also depends on the projects. So some of the things that you did this year that you wouldn't have done in the past, you did your solar panel upgrade, which was about $460,000 just for your solar. So you used some of the money out of your gas tax and your government funding, and that's why it's in a revenue line item. So that's really the biggest change from last year to this year in your budget. Your tax revenue remains relatively consistent. You didn't have an increase in taxes in your rates, and there wasn't a significant increase in your assessments over the prior year. So your tax revenue remains relatively consistent year to year. Obviously, that's one of the biggest driving factors in how much revenue you have is your tax revenue. On the expense side, you can see that you budgeted $19,416,197, and you came in at $19,554,084. So you're only about $125,000 higher than your budget. That's actually pretty good on a $20 million budget to only be off by $125,000 in expenditures. So you can see each one of the classes are up a little bit or down a little bit. But when we compare it to the prior year, you can see that the prior year was $19,132,096. So you're up about $400,000 over the prior year. And it mostly sits in that general government services line. And so there was a few things that happened there. No one really large item, but a whole bunch of small items. So council salary would have been up this year because this was the first year with a changeover to the non-taxable stipend. So you had that converted. So the salary went up in lieu of losing that non-taxable portion, as well as some of the expenses were higher. There were some increases in salaries, and also the repairs and maintenance in this building were higher this year than in the prior year. And you actually had a by-election too as well during the 2020 fiscal period. So all those items tie together to make that expense line a little bit higher than the prior year. So what that does is it gives you an annual surplus before undernoted items of $714,416, and last year was $615,491. So you're about $100,000 better than the prior year. And then the only other large item there is the other, we call it pension recovery. So every year, your actuary does a calculation of the value of the pension plan, whether or not it's in an asset position or in a liability position. And so this year, once again, your pension on the calculation by an actuary grew in the asset column by $183,000. So that's an additional recovery for you. So your total surplus for the year, annual surplus, is $897,177. You had an accumulated surplus at the beginning of the year of $73,611,792. So at the end of the year, you have $74,508,969 as your total accumulated surplus. And if we turn over the page, you'll see that number again on the bottom of this page. This is the consolidated statement of financial position. So the two must balance from one place to the next. So before I talk about the detail, I'll just point out $74,508,969 in annual surplus. Of that amount, $66 million is invested in your infrastructure to be able to provide services to your residents. So that's your buildings, your equipment, your trucks, your water utility, your sewer system, everything all added together. So of 74, 66 is invested in the physical structures that you have. So if we just look to the top, the first section is what we call financial assets, those that are readily convertible to cash. You can see the very top line, your cash and cash equivalents line, and it did grow from the prior year because you would have received gas tax money. So this year you got 2 installments of gas tax, so double what you would normally have, which is awesome.
We love it.
You hadn't spent it all by the end of the year, so that causes your cash balance to grow, but you do have plans over the next few years to spend what you have in your unspent gas tax money, but that's why your cash balance would have grown over the prior year. Your taxes receivable and your sewer receivable and water receivable are actually in very good position, considering March 31st. Prior to March 31st, we were hit by COVID. You actually still collected more than you had in the prior year, so your receivable balance is down for both those categories over the prior year. So that's a good sign that they didn't grow towards the end of your year. And then a few items down, you can see that pension benefit asset. It grew from the prior year, so it's $1,045,415, where it was $862,000 last year. So that's where it grew by that $183,000. You have a small portfolio investment, and that's actually resident in the Industrial Commission, and that's your share of what they have invested. And so your total financial assets are $13,252,991. And then you have some what we call financial liabilities. So you can see the first one is due to the federal government and agencies. So that would represent your fourth quarter payment for RCMP services. The due to the provincial government and its agencies, that's the final payment that is due to housing for the year. You have your general payables and accruals, nothing significant changed there from the prior year. You have post-employment benefits, so those are retiring allowances and sick allowances that have to be accrued under the public sector accounting standards. And then you have deferred revenue. So I mentioned earlier, that's where the gas tax money sits until you spend it. So you have $2 million of deferred revenue yet to spend into the future for your gas tax projects.
I do have a question. So the first two under financial liabilities, the federal, the RCMP, and the provincial housing, where does education fall? That's a huge check that I write on a...
You are all paid up by the end of the year, so that's why there's no balance outstanding. These are the payments that weren't cashed, so they would have been amounts that were owing at the end of the year but hadn't been cashed by the receiver.
Okay.
So you had paid all your education payments during the year. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yep. And then the last item is your long-term debt. So you only have two long-term debt left, $1,066,000, and they will be paid out in the next 4 years. And actually, none of the subsidiaries that we consolidate and bring into your operations have any external debt. They have general payables, but none of them have any long-term debt. So the only debt here you have is the towns itself and those two that are left. So your total liabilities are $5,478,762. And you have a resulting net financial asset position of $7,774,229, which is a very strong position to be in. And that's one of the indicators that the public sector accounting standards look at in terms of the health of an organization. And I'll just point out that included in that $7.7 million is $1.1 million in net assets of all of the subsidiaries added together. So they do contribute to your financial asset position. And then, like I said earlier, your non-financial assets are the structure. So you can see that you have $66,491,151. And so you did spend $2.6 million during 2020 in the addition of new fixed assets, the solar, repaving roads, those types of things. So you did spend $2.6 million there. So those are the two most important pages. I'll just quickly go over page 6. This is a continuity of that financial asset position that we just looked at the $7.7 million that I said was in a strong position. So you can see in the past 2 years, each year you've grown that balance. This year by $1,776,000. But you can also look at the top and see acquisition of tangible capital assets. You had originally budgeted to spend $7.9 million this year, but you only spent $2.6. So in a year, if you had spent the $7.9 million this year, then this would have reduced, right? So every year that you're going to spend on your capital assets will draw down this financial asset position. So, but it is fairly consistent with what you spent last year. On page 7, this also is a continuity of your cash balance. And it just shows how the cash came in and went back out the door. But the important part is at the bottom, that once again, you grew your cash balance by $1,678,096. So that's the financial portion. The rest are the notes and the supporting schedules. And so the only one that I'll actually talk about, because it is new this year, but I did go over it with your audit committee as well, is we have included a note on the impact of COVID for the year, and that's on page 25. So while we conducted the audit, we had to look at COVID's impact on the town of Yarmouth from two aspects. The first one was it did happen mid-March, to have some impact locally. So we had to look at it and say, is there anything that's happened that might affect the results from March 31st, 2020? Would it have changed any of your assets and liabilities or your revenues and expenses? So we went through that process of looking at all those items. And so we can conclude that it had no impact on your March 31st results. However, there is a subsequent event, and that's what we've included here in the note disclosure, was that there has been an impact from the town's perspective in terms of the operations. Some of the things didn't happen that might normally have happened. However, we concluded at the end of the day that as of today when we release, there hasn't been even anything significant since that point in time that will negatively impact the town. They've continued to do their billings and do their collections. Some things haven't happened as planned, but as of today, still in a strong position and nothing of significance for us to note. And then basically we conclude by saying we're not sure what might happen into the end of 2021 because who knows what might happen next with COVID. But so that is the one new note that we did include for this year. So that's my report.
Thank you very much. I love your words when you said on page 5, very strong financial position, because I think every municipality, you know, at the local level, it's all tight, very tight everywhere, but we're doing exceptionally well, and we're pretty proud of that.
Yep.
I'd love to take credit. I think we all would, but we've got a great CAO and financial team. So thanks to the team that makes this happen. We make some big money decisions, but they make sure we can do it and still stay within.
Yep.
So it's kind of interesting for me because we get often how, you know, the town's financial, the shape that we're in, and it's just the opposite, I think, of what many people think. We're in great financial shape.
Yep.
So, yeah, good to hear. Okay. Motion by the Deputy Mayor to accept and second by Councillor Wade. Any further discussion on this? Go ahead there, Councillor Jim.
Just a general comment. We spent, the audit committee spent 24 hours, 3 hours a couple of days ago going over the statement, and Gloria has to be patient with some of us us volunteers on the committee. So again, I just want to say thank you also. Appreciate that. Thanks, Pam.
Good. Any more discussion? Questions called? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Good stuff. Thank you very much, Gloria. You guys are awesome. Tender results. Trucking of highway bulk salt. Do you want to take that, CAO?
Sure enough.
Go ahead. Oh, I keep
Okay.
pressing the button, but it's on automatically.
Yeah, that's right. So the Manager of Public Works issued a tender for trucking of highway salt for the 2021 winter season as advertised on the provincial procurement site as well as the Town of Yarmouth's website. The closing date was September 29th, and 4 responses were received with the results summarized in the manager's memo. After reviewing the tenders, it is recommended that the contract be awarded to the lowest tender, Rose Valley Trucking and Excavating, in the amount of $40 per ton plus HST, for a total estimated contract price for the season of $60,000 plus HST. That is for your information and approval.
Moved by Councillor Don, second by Councillor Steve. Discussion on this one? Questions called? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you. Council advisory committees. Oh, Deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll make a motion that Council empower staff to canvass directly for accessibility committee members from organizations representing people with accessibility challenges.
Did you want to speak to that, Councillor? You good?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. I do want to mention this. Lindsay, somebody sent an application to me, but I sent it to you, a lady. Double check. I just want to make sure. So we kind of have been talking in the community about this because it's easy to say set up a committee, but if nobody shows up to sit on that committee, we can't get it up and going. But we are still on track with the province's mandate and their process. We're still on track with that, with the accessibility piece, and looking to get some more names on that. So moved, seconded. Any more discussion, folks? Questions called? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
Your worship, I move that council direct staff to investigate a bylaw restricting the use of herbicides such as Weed Be Gone and Roundup containing potentially harmful chemicals.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Cliff.
What are we going to use?
Well, that's what they're going to.
That's what they're investigate.
We're not saying we're not doing it. We're just saying they're going to investigate.
I think it was a recommendation, Councillor Hood, from Communities in Bloom, and I think some other jurisdictions have banned the use of some of these, but they just wanted to investigate to see if it's possible, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, because with looking at those, we need to know what the alternatives are, so that's
That's right.
good. So moved, who seconded that? Councillor Steve, any more discussion?
Question, Your
Questions
worship.
called, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary?
Your
Motion carried.
worship, I move that council ask Housing Nova Scotia to explore the options for tax laddering agreements for derelict and/or divested buildings, such as schools, for housing purposes.
Second by Councillor Don. Any discussion, aside from the fact that this is one more step that the council's taken with regard to looking for housing?
And we've been very successful, Your worship, with the tax laddering component in our central business district, and thanks to yourself and the voice of the Federation of Nova Scotia Municipalities to the minister, that it's been a successful program and has been copied around the province. So hopefully this will have the same success and the same uptake from the minister. We can point out the success of the other program.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, if you have a derelict building and you want to fix it up, or you want to purchase it and fix it up, let's say it's worth $100,000, and then you fix it up and it's worth $200,000, I think what we're asking for is the difference between what it is and what it will be when it's fixed up. We're asking those taxes to be laddered. And it's tremendously helpful when folks can fix up the buildings, but when the tax bill is too high, this is just a way to manage that and to just do the additional taxes over the years. So I'm pretty excited about
and
this one.
I think I'm probably going to take Councillor Hood's thunder, but I think maybe he's going to talk about the divested part, but I think the most important part of that whole recommendation is for housing purposes, the last three words in the motion.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Councillor Hood.
So absolutely, yes, Your worship. When this came up, we were talking about initially just derelict buildings, and it suggested that we should be inclusive with the language and include divested buildings because of some of the problems. And the whole idea of laddering, if the public doesn't know, is you enter into an agreement whereby the taxes are scaled from 10%, say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 over a 10-year period, and you're fully taxed at the end of that time. It would be for the difference between the original cost and the renovated value, something like that. So I'm supporting the motion.
Any more discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Don.
I think the most important thing is that there's been a need for housing for a long period of time. I think that this is probably one of our most positive moves that we've made if we can get people to buy into it. I think the people that do own buildings will find it a little bit relaxed on taxes and stuff, so it sounds like all positive. I can't see how we could go wrong on this one. I'll be supporting the motion.
Good. Anyone else? Questions called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
Are these all the matters that are coming from the Committee of the Whole on September 23rd?
They are.
There was another matter that we discussed, and that was the issue of the report we received from the CFO regarding the issue of a HST tax audit. And I thought either there was something coming out of that meeting or the
Go ahead. Sorry, Deputy.
If my memory serves us right, to the CAO, They're going to have another audit meeting shortly, Councillor Hood, and they are going to make a, they're going to make a recommendation. Am I semi right on that?
Yeah, more than semi.
Okay.
The audit committee met earlier this week and discussed the audit and what was transpiring there. The process is not complete. The report that the CFO provided at the committee of the whole meeting was as a result of the fact that CRA had made some adjustments and were reflected in the financial statements, but the matter isn't reached a conclusion. We've passed the files over to Grant Thornton and their HST experts to try and resolve a significant portion of what we consider the outstanding issue. And so that involves the Waterfront Development Corporation and the grants that we provide to them and how we appropriately make a claim for that HST as a town. So we believe we did it correctly, and in fact we believe we were directed in how to do it, and so the fact that it was not accepted in their final report is a little confusing, and so that's the matter that we're asking Grant Thornton to pursue further. So when they have a report back, the audit committee will reconvene, find out where we are at that point.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm not 100% satisfied, Your Worship, with this because it was quite a concern to some of the councillors spoke to me after that when it was raised. You may recall that it was almost passed and accepted without comment, and there was no comment from the audit committee, and I was concerned about that. I met with staff the next day and discussed my concerns with them, and I got a brief understanding of what it's all about. But we're talking about a $300,000 HST audit, and we're still outstanding after quite a lengthy period of time of adjusting to the tune of maybe $75,000 or so, I believe is the number. And so, yes, so then the audit committee was called for Monday, and I learned that it may have been the first and only audit committee meeting in a year. And I'm concerned about that. And so in the audit committee meeting, there was something that arose from that. I don't know if it's on the agenda to do it, but I thought we were directing Grant Thornton not only to work to try to fix it, use their expertise. I was concerned that there's a gap in the ability of our existing staff to manage these HST accounting issues, and if so, I'd like to hear from Grant Thornton as to what needs to be done to avoid this in the future. I don't think we should gloss this thing over.
Go ahead, CAO.
Yeah, Your Worship, that was something that we did ask Grant Thornton to do, was to look at our situation, and as they indicated, our situation as a town is fairly complex, and as is the HST, and so we asked them to give us a sense of what their HST experts could do in terms of a review, whether that be annually or every couple of years, to review the work that staff have done and maybe pick up on any errors or whatever prior to CRA coming and doing an HST audit. The audits, so we've had 2 HST audits in the last 15 years, and we did have Grant Thornton also do a similar process to what I just referred to on our own initiative a number of years ago. And one of the things they told us was the HST audits get triggered by variations in your HST claims or remittances by more than 25%. And so you can imagine with our capital projects, in some years we execute a lot of projects, and some years we don't. And so this year is a very busy year for us. Last year was not so much. So we're expecting that we're going to attract the attention of CRA based on our level of activity this year. We'll probably hear from them in the next year or two. So it would be worthwhile to understand from Grant Thornton what they can do for us and what the cost would be, and kind of look at that as kind of an insurance policy against interest charges that we could attract if we're found by CRA a year or 2 years or 3 years down the road to have made an error.
The final piece on that is that I don't think I've ever served on the audit committee, to be honest, but so what is the policy of the audit committee, or how do you go about calling meetings?
So that was, that was my question that I had written down as well. Go ahead. Okay, I got a lot of lights
Yeah,
on.
I think
So,
Jim, go ahead if you want to go.
so Councillor Cliff, we're going to, as a result of the audit committee, the recent audit committee meeting, staff have decided and our audit committee members agree that we're going to meet quarterly. And the first meeting is in January. I don't have the date with me, but sometime in January. So that we'll be meet on a more regular basis. And I think that, personally, I think the audit committee of the day, when they meet, we have a council, at the committee of the whole, there's always Jerry comes and is able to respond to questions. But we can do more detail just concentrating on the audit committee activity quarterly. And then if you have any questions on the monthly committee of the whole meetings, then it becomes easier to understand for all of us volunteers around the table.
Councillor Don?
I guess from what I understood is that the audit committee meets, or that they do a financial statement on us twice in 10 years. So if you start thinking back of how many transactions that take place in one given year, it could be 1 million. We'll just throw it out there as a big number. And you think on some of the projects that we give out there, the HST is either on or not on that slip of paper that comes in. I think our financial people do a great job, but they don't do every paper. I think it would be very important to look at Grant Thornton and maybe as a council even hire them for a year to oversee or overlook and catch any of the stuff that's going to be missed. I think any time that the government does any kind of report on you, they're looking to see how much they can scale back and get into their pocket. Outside spectator looking. They always try to get as much as they can from you. It's your job as is our job as financial advisors and audit committees just to follow the lead of the people that are running our finances. And from what I understood at this meeting is basically what I learned is that when they come down, they're getting as much as we can. We try to cut them back and prove. You're always at the defense of the government. They want their money, a pound of flesh, no matter how much they're going to get. Our job is to look at it with a financial advisor and come up and beat and beat and beat and beat. You're ending up going to pay something because that's the way they work. So I'm glad that it was a 6-year ago event that they came after us. It wasn't until 2 years ago, probably, that we scaled it back to the 300,000, and now we scaled it back even less than that. But if you think this happened 6 years ago, okay, the thing that government always wants its interest, and I don't care how you turn around, you're paying some kind of interest in the end result. So I believe that just as long as our financial advisors are trying to beat it down, I'm happy. You're always going to miss the transactions, unfortunately, and that's a sad thing. Like if we have something that's 500,000, you have to pay GST on it. Well, you can see how quickly it zooms up. But we got to catch that at the beginning. We got to catch it when we're first missing the GST part and pay it. Then it doesn't look bad on us as running the town and looking that we're not doing our part with GST. It's sad that we can't get the government to come back every so many years, at least in our reign, so that we know exactly how much we either owe or how much we don't owe. So it is kind of frustrating that after 6 years we look at a bill and we say, geez, I wasn't even part of it then, but I guess I'm caught up into it now. And it looks bad on us as an audit committee. It does look bad that we didn't know all the ins and outs of when you were bringing up your concerns, and I see your concerns, but I don't even know if we would have known then. It would have been another, the question would be, how come you didn't know 6 years ago, or how come you didn't know 4 years ago, or how come, you know what I mean? But we would have been good enough to inform you that it did go from 300,000 down to 75, somewhere around that, and we're even working on trying to get it lower than that. But I think it's a great move for us to hire, as a team or whoever takes over in our place, to hire Grant Thornton to look over that part of HST. And because HST can sometimes come up to bite you. I think financially, we're okay anyway, either way. It's just that it looks bad that we're giving some money back to the government. I don't like to give them one penny.
Well, wait a second, we good? Go ahead.
All due respect, Councillor, your argument might make sense if there was overages and we were getting some credit for overages. Have we ever had an overage? Well, if your HST audits are always showing that you owe money, why aren't they occasionally, on that argument, showing that you're sometimes above paid too much? That's the question I asked.
Go ahead.
So, last comment, I guess, to throw into the discussion is that sometimes they do find things that come to our benefit in that process. It's more likely to come, that's more likely to be the point of view or the area of investigation of a Grant Thornton that you hire than the federal government coming in and auditing. So that's another benefit of looking at that process. I also want to make clear that there wasn't $300,000 in mistakes or errors within our HST handling for those years. The number was 300,000, but some of the errors were actually in how they took our data. So this wasn't a case of they came down, sat at the table here, and went through invoices for 2 weeks. They had us send them 3 years of financial data, and then there were issues with the data getting the wrong vendor being listed against an invoice. And so they were asking questions, and Jerry was sending them invoices, and they were not getting the right name on the invoice they were looking for, but it was because of the data transfer had messed it up. And so there were a lot of things that had to be sorted out in that way. The major issue, $55,000 worth of it, again, is related to grants that we provide to a company that is fully owned by the town of Yarmouth, which CRA has told us we have to charge HST on the grants that we give them, or remit, pay HST, and then claim back. And then there was an issue about how we do that. And I'm no HST expert, but it's a difference between rebates and input tax credits. And anyway, we followed their direction, and at the end of the day, there's still $55,000 of that bill tied up in that single issue. There was another issue, just to give you an example. Insurance is not subject to HST. But an invoice came in, and our insurance invoice is fairly large. That invoice was put into our system erroneously and coded as though it included HST, and so that was an error that we had to sort out with them because just simply of a keying issue when one invoice was put in. So the larger the invoice or the larger the item, the higher the number gets, and so it wasn't $300,000 worth of errors, but it was $300,000 in discrepancies that our staff had to work through 6 years back in the data to try and sort out with them. So it was a very laborious effort on all parties, but now hopefully Grant Thornton can pull it across the finish line.
Good. Thanks, folks, for that. Okay, we have citizen advisory, so planning advisory, that's you there, Councillor Jim. Go ahead.
As a result of our Planning Advisory Committee meeting of October the 6th, 2020, the following motion. I move to give first reading to rezoning 38 Vancouver Street from low-density residential R1, to medium-density residential R2, zone for the purpose of enabling a 3-unit dwelling, and that staff be authorized to schedule a public hearing as outlined in our planner's report.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on that one? Anybody?
I think it's great that we're doing it.
It is.
Do we know? Does everyone know 38 Vancouver Street?
Yeah, I don't understand what they're doing.
It's R1 now, and they want to have 3 units.
What?
But you're not going to see the
Put your
difference,
light on,
Cliff.
don't speak.
We're going to have 3 units, and you will not see any difference compared to the home today with 3 units in it. Beautiful home. Increase our densification, close to the hospital, doctors.
I think they'd be paying more rent in this than they would any mortgage, I can guarantee you that.
anyway, I just wanted to make sure everyone, some of us know the history of the home, and it's goes back a nice long ways. Yeah. Amen. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Okay, so moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Questions called? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried, and we have the Heritage Committee. Is that you, Deputy?
It's me, Your Worship. I'll make a motion that we approve an a Heritage Advisory Committee to approve the application from the owners of 1 Sycamore Street, Richard Pache and Rosemary Guyette, for the Heritage Incentive Program in the amount of $2,000. And you can see the work with the pictures provided, Your Worship. And they did a nice job on the place. And former Mayor's House, Willard Allen, and I think one of the first hospital in the town of Yarmouth. Yeah, first hospital in the town of Yarmouth. So, done a nice job on the property, and I'm glad that they applied for it. And I think that is the only application we had this year. Councillor Jim, Councillor Cliff. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a motion. Can I have a seconder? Second by Councillor Cliff. Any more discussion on this one? Questions called? All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. Reports for information. I didn't see anything, actually.
Your Worship, maybe I'd like to ask Councillor Cleveland. The town of Yarmouth got a good piece of news today. I chair his former committee, and I know he spent the bulk of the last 4 years chairing it, and I've had just the last couple of meetings, so maybe Wade can make a little announcement to the public.
Sounds good. Go ahead, Councillor Wade.
All right, well, I'm very excited about this, actually. As you know, last year we hosted the World with Communities in Bloom. This year, the World stayed home, and Communities in Bloom had their national symposium virtually. And today, the national awards were held, and we won.
What?
We won the Communities in Bloom Community Appearance Award. It was us and Tignish PEI who both won that award, but we won an award virtually, and it really kind of warms my heart. It's very exciting. The name of the award is the Communities in Bloom Community Appearance Award. And so we won again. And
That is amazing.
And,
Go ahead,
and Your
Deputy.
Worship, just to add to that, these awards came up really quick, like they didn't. They're trying to see what they could do on the national level. And I'd like to thank Dave Warner for the work that he did on this. He saw a couple of opportunities for us to put our name in, or the town of Yarmouth's name in, to get these awards, or to try to get these awards. And he went out and did some legwork himself and took some pictures and took it upon himself to send it in. And lo and behold, we did win. And I think after last year's success I know Wade worked hard on it, and the whole town of Yarmouth staff with Todd and the people at the Mariner Center and the group that put that Communities in Bloom Symposium together was second to none. Everybody loved it, and I think it shows that hard work pays off sometimes. So kudos to Wade and the whole group at Communities in Bloom. Very good news, and hopefully next year we'll be able to apply for some more awards and bring home some more hardware.
This, I don't know if folks understand the magnitude of it. This puts us on a world stage. We are on a world stage, and it's because of, I mean, honestly, Councillor Wade, you've chaired it, and you've put your heart and soul into that. And I know you would pass that over to the people on the committee and the volunteers that, I mean, you can't drive to work or walk through town unless you see many volunteers. They're in our gardens every single day, and they're cleaning up, and they're beautifying their own properties, and they're digging their hands in with every square inch within this town, and it doesn't go unnoticed. And it's not an award that is just local. The world knows that we've won this.
Yep.
It's huge. So congratulations, and I hope again for Mr. Warner and Wade, for you and your team, that that there's a manner that we can get that word out to them so that they understand just how huge it is.
Yeah, no question about it. A huge kudos to the volunteers. The volunteers is what makes the Community in Bloom Committee so important and valuable. And that's why we do this. And it's a magnificent thing, and it's them. It's their enthusiasm, their passion that makes the difference. And there's one other thing I'd like to say, just really quickly. I served for quite a while on the Communities in Bloom board as its chair. After I took over the Mariner Center chairmanship, I just felt it was too much, and I asked Deputy Mayor Phil Mooney if he would come in and take over from there. And he did, of course, very graciously, as he always does. And as this is his last meeting as a councillor, I would just like to take a minute to A, thank him for the work that he's done with Communities in Bloom, but more on a personal level, thank you for everything you've done, not just for the council, but for me personally, as a rookie on this 4 years ago. I couldn't have done it as well if it weren't for you, and thank you.
We're not there yet.
You can leave now.
We're not there yet, but we're not there yet on that one.
And maybe just one further thing to Communities in Bloom. We have the Ken Langell Symposium that always happens in February, but because of the COVID concerns, the Communities in Bloom group is going to work on a virtual presentation. So some might be some local, but they're going to use the resources from the National Committee and also some provincial resources that you'll be able to look at these videos or this virtual thing and be able to look at it on your own timeline. So they're looking at doing that sometimes early next spring. So they're,
Awesome.
even though they know there is going to be a turnover at council or turnover in the Communities in Bloom Committee, they are still looking at ways to improve our community. So that's just one of the things that they are going to do.
Good. Okay, so here are your reports from any more questions for committee chairs? We good? We'd love an update.
And if he does that as community, or as the water utility chair, I'd like to have an update on the, I see the engineers here, have an update on the bulk water.
So the bulk water,
Okay.
did we hit 1,000?
And a million.
We have hit already 1,000 customers, fill-ups, and 1 million liters of water dispensed to our neighbors and friends in the municipality of the District of Yarmouth and Argyll. This has been a remarkably positive outcome for the water utility. We stepped out, took the bull by the horns, and I have made several visits out there and spoken with individuals who are doing it, and they've had nothing but positive words. Everything has been positive about the experience. The time for fill-ups is around 3 minutes, 4 minutes tops. And I really want to give a shout out to our staff, to Mark Brophy and DeMario, to Chad, and to Rob a little bit too as well. These are the people that pushed me to bring this thing forward in the way we did, and to step up and convince council and CEOs to do this without spending months trying to see if we couldn't get some money out of the other municipal units. Lake George is a wonderful resource if it's protected properly. We still have some issues with the Department of Environment in terms of our flow things, but we are nearly have that resolved. We have it resolved for this year until February when our water permit is renewed. We've just completed a report with Stantec Engineering, which is excellent. Mark did a great job in showing those people just exactly what we need out there, which is a reduction in the amount of water that we're discharging down the brook in at the old fish hatchery, so that we can save more water in the lake in case we get to a situation in one of these drought years where there frankly is a shortage of water. That you see, we might have been in a situation where we could not have enough water for our own selves, let alone for the bulk water the bulk water station and our friends and neighbors in the municipality. And it's important. The lake has the capacity to look after all of us, not only in the town, but in the municipality, if we manage the flow out of the lake in a manner that makes sense, and not just necessarily to keep some pollywogs alive in a dry summer when every other stream bed, the pollywogs have either found a way to live or croaked and passed away to pass on their time to another generation of pollywogs. Enough said? Now, as you know, several years ago, there was great fanfare covered in the media about a lawsuit against the town. That lawsuit has been stalled out, not moved forward. I think we're on either the 4th or 5th adjournment by the plaintiffs. Most recently, we would have been in discoveries on this matter next week, leading up to the election. The plaintiffs requested another adjournment, and the matter's been put over until sometime in February. I'd like to be around to make sure that I can ensure that our solicitors in Halifax don't fall down on the job, and make sure that this thing is resolved in favor of the town at some point in the future. Thank you. I might just show up there anyway. I got a couple.
That was the best. That was
I've
the
got
best.
a couple of other files. I have two other files of that law firm, and I make sure when I pass by. Yeah, all right.
Can you?
Hey, I'm keeping my law certificate for a while yet.
Can you turn your light off if you're finished?
I don't want to finish. I want
I
to
know.
get elected.
God love you. I don't care. I don't care. You, sir, are brilliant. And you're funny, too. On a good day. Oh, my gosh. Okay, any more questions for committee chairs, folks? We're good? Okay, we got additions. So I just put Halloween down here because I'm getting a lot of questions. I don't know if everybody else is, but the community is saying, what are we doing about Halloween? Now, I don't think we say we can have Halloween or not, but I for some reason, I thought Dr. Strang had said Halloween isn't canceled. I just don't know what the answer to the community is, because we certainly want to maintain safety. You know, everybody does things differently. Even the election, it killed me not to knock on doors, but I just refused to do it because of COVID. So what do we do about Halloween? Has anybody got any idea? CAO, do you have even an inkling?
No, Your Worship. My recollection is that Dr. Strang said that Halloween is on. Now, I did hear of a municipality that had put out some sort of, I don't know, it was a door hanger or something that could be displayed on the front door of a house. And one side was red and the other side was green. Wow. And so for citizens who did not want to have trick-or-treaters come into their front door, were concerned about that, they could simply hang it on the front door, red side out, and the message was clear to the trick-or-treaters that this house wasn't participating. Or you hang it with the green side out, means come knock on my door, I've got a treat for you. So that's the only thing I've heard, Your Worship, about a municipality doing something around trick-or-treat. It could have been Wolfville. That sounds like a Wolfville kind of thing.
Yeah, it does. I think
but I'm not sure.
Okay, good. Thank you. Councillor Steve?
I did hear that Yarmouth Mazda is putting on an event much like the Wesleyan Church usually puts on, the junk in the trunk or whatever it usually is.
Trunk or treat, yeah.
Yeah, and I do believe that also for people who don't want to give out candy, they'll have an option that you can give candy to them prior, and they'll make sure they hand it out to the kids. So that might be an option if we could maybe help promote or figure out what we can do to support them and help in a community event.
Okay, thank you. I wonder if we should do that. That's an awful lot to ask, but.
You need a bylaw to do that every year, not just for COVID. Old folks like me won't want to get up there and
Okay, we'll just leave. I mean, go ahead, Councillor Jim.
Cliff, I get dressed up every year. I'm just as bad as the kids.
Oh, my goodness. You know what? It was a council meeting, now it's a circus. Okay, I thought I'd ask the question. Councillor Wade, you had crosswalks on. If you want to take that, go ahead.
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. I was contacted last week by the Homan School at the, Yarmouth Elementary School. Yes, that's right. And what they were asking is what could be done, or if anything could be done, about a crosswalk linking the school to the old school. Because believe it or not, what is happening is the school is bringing kids across the road to play in the play area at Central School. And so I would like to ask, if anyone minded, CAO, if you could get the traffic authority to just take a look and see if it's viable or not. It used to be there, but it isn't there now, and I'm not sure if it's safe or if it's a necessity or what, but it is worth being looked into.
Go ahead, CAO.
Yeah, so Your Worship, I'm familiar. I've seen the kids over at Central School playing at lunch hour as I've walked by, and I've seen them. They use the crosswalk that is down at the bottom of the hill, down at School Street, I guess it is. There was a crosswalk you referred, Councillor Cleveland referred to, that used to go across more or less at the high school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
kind of at the top of the hill. If Your Worship, if there's a motion to refer the matter to the Traffic Authority, that would be
Sure.
appropriate.
Could I make that motion, please?
Certainly.
That be referred to the Traffic Authority, at least for investigation.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Second by Councillor Steve, and Councillor Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, just maybe in addition to that, I also had someone contact me from Yarmouth Life Skills and ask about some more crosswalks on Water Street. When they walk Water Street, they have to go quite a ways to get back to get to a sidewalk. So I don't know if there was one on Glebe, and maybe it's not because of the construction that we had around, but just to look into maybe adding a few more, because they have to walk quite a ways to get back to the opposite side of the street. So maybe just to look into it.
Well,
add to,
actually, Councillor Wade made a motion, and you were just asking to add to that.
To look into
So,
both, yeah.
Okay, we're going to do two different motions. Okay. So let's do Councillor Steve's by the school. He's moved and you seconded it. Any discussion? On all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. And Councillor Steve's is on Water Street. And Councillor Cliff, did you want to second that? Is that what you just? Yeah, okay. Questions called? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thanks, folks. Okay, that was all the additions. Okay, Mayor's report. How do you like that? Haven't had one of those for a long time. You're not allowed to get up. That was 4 years ago. Okay? I know you did. I know you did. So it's not a mayor's report. It's just this is our last council meeting like this. So I jotted down some notes because I could probably talk for about 3 hours, but I'll only do a couple of pages. So in a nutshell, every 4 years, we know the people of the community choose who will lead them into the next 4 years, and that's exactly where we are today in the midst of an election. And I just thought it was appropriate just to share a few words and some thank yous. So the past 4 years for me have been nothing short of amazing. In the run of a term, we make as a council in one term an average of about 600 decisions at the council table. Doesn't seem like that, but we do. We've made big ones, small ones, we've made easy ones, we've made some seriously difficult ones. And not once have I felt like any of those decisions were politically driven, which may not make sense to some people, but I have always felt like it's the right decision for the right reason, no matter how difficult it's been. And I do a lot of work municipally across the whole country, actually into the U.S. as well, and That's not the case everywhere. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. So regardless of how hard the decisions were to make, we made them because they were the best for the residents and the businesses of our community. So I just want to say thank you to each of you for the no-nonsense, the no-game-playing, gutsy decisions that we've had to make. And even though we make decisions as 7 elected officials at the table, I have to carry that out as the mayor. I have to be the voice, and I have felt supported in that every single step of the way. So thanks for that. I think what I've enjoyed the most is that we've always been able to put everything on the table. The respect shown for different views and decisions is something all councils should strive for. I've lost, admittedly, a few battles at this table, but I'm so thankful that we've been able to separate the person from the issue on every one of them and vote each our own way and respect each other in the process. Someone actually said to me yesterday, it wasn't the first person, there's no arguing like there used to be at the council table, and my answer was simple. When different opinions are valued and encouraged, there's no need of the old way of politics where arguments ensue at the table and everything gets out of control. And when you know a decision is the right decision for the community, there's no need to talk about it for an hour. So I think we've just voted and gotten our business done. So in 10 days, there could be 7 changes at this table. That's up to the public. And I know that each of us here respects the public's decision. But while there could be 7, we all know that there is definitely 1. And that one change is our deputy, Phil Mooney, who has abandoned us, sorry, moved to the county, which means he can't run for town council. And because of the timing, you couldn't, or you chose not to run for the municipality either. So I think everyone knows Phil, but Phil was first elected to town council in 1984. He returned in 2008, and he served as the town's mayor until 2012. And I had to say this, and I've probably said this about 1 million times to 1 million different people. You weathered us through what I consider the perfect storm. We had lost ferry. We had a global economic downturn. The fishery was not what it was supposed to be, and you went through that whole thing. And some other issues that we won't even mention, Thank you for that. And I remember the day that I walked, it was my first time in town hall, and I walked in there and I respectfully thought if I was going to run for the mayor's seat, I should tell the mayor. And he thanked me for coming in and gave me a few tips, and off we went. So so since then he's served, everyone knows, as a councillor, and for the past 6 years, I believe, as deputy. Has it been 6 years? 4 as deputy mayor. Felt like about 60. No, 4 as the deputy mayor. And I don't even know where to begin with this. I'll start by saying it's been a true partnership. He's at my desk if I'm away. He signs checks when I can't. He takes meeting upon meeting upon meeting and represents the town when I'm unable to do that or when one of us can't. I think Deputy Phil knows that you all know this, I'm often double or triple booked, and I can't remember Deputy Phil ever saying no, not once, to one request for his assistance. He's been a true deputy. I remember when I thought, you know what, if I'm going to be the mayor, I'm going to do some things that Phil did when he was the mayor. And one of the first things was I got to meet Jody Shelley at the Jody Shelley golf tournament. And I went up to him and I said, Mr. Shelley, I'm the new mayor, and I know that in previous years, when Phil was mayor, he was on your team. Can I be on your team? And Mr. Shelley very nicely said, no thank you, the team's full. And I said, Mr. Shelley, then can I just please just be your caddy? And he said, no, not even. So I think he took Mayor out and he put Phil back in on a permanent basis, but it was hilarious because I wouldn't even know how to play golf to save my life. And every year we have gone to the hospital foundation and we've always gone together. They asked me to present the check that council so graciously donates, but it was always more fun with Deputy Phil when he would come along with me. And to me it was important because no one raises more money for great causes than Phil Mooney. But we did our thing, we handed over the check, we came out from behind the radio booth, the hospital was packed, and I said, oh my goodness, Deputy, I forgot my purse back there. And my purse had a great big diamond on it, and it was just laden with jeweled. It made Gaudy look nice, he said. And he said, don't you worry, I'm your deputy. He said, I'll go get that purse for you. And he picked up my purse. Seriously, Cliff, honestly. He had it on his arm. And I said, well, come on. He goes, no, he said, I'm going to stand 3 steps behind you, just like I should. And if you need to know anybody's name, you just let me know. I said, if that isn't the best deputy anybody could ask for, it was just unbelievable. I would always, whenever I was with him, look to him for names because I will never in my lifetime forget a face. But everybody knows that Deputy Phil knows exactly who you are 30 generations back. And in case those of you listening don't know, you're probably one of Phil's cousins. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Phil loves people genuinely. He cares about this community to the depths of his soul. He straightened me out on more than one occasion and helped me understand why I would need to make better and different decisions. I listened to him. Some days I didn't, but we always came to a common agreement. I've traveled from Yarmouth to Toronto to PEI to Washington, D.C., and not once have I ever gone anywhere that at least one person didn't say, you're from Yarmouth, you must know Phil Mooney. And I would always say, are you a cousin? Because that was usually the case. Phil, you made my job easy. You believed in me, you encouraged me, told me when I was wrong, you celebrated when we agreed. You made me laugh, you made me cry, especially when I checked the balance on the mayor's fund, now aptly renamed the deputy mayor's fund, because I don't get to tap into that much. You have perhaps unknowingly mentored every single person at this table, regardless of their age or how long they've been at the table. The respect from your colleagues province-wide and further is unparalleled, and it's well-deserved. You have, I don't think people know this, but I tell people often, you have called me every single day for 5 years with, what's up? What's new? What do we need to know? And what can I do? And it's funny because even my kids, when my phone rings, they go, is it Phil? And it usually is. So, and every phone call has been followed by, okay, sounds good, and I'll see you at the office tomorrow. It's funny because I brought this is in my office, and you've seen it every single day. But that's my grampy when he was the mayor, and that's your dad at the table. And I'm like, what? These things you can't. And Patty Durkee's dad is at this table, and I looked twice because I for sure thought that Cliff's dad was there as well. But it's just in us to serve. So I have something for you because it just, yeah, I do. No, it's not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. Because I think everybody at Town Hall would say it wouldn't be the same without you. It wouldn't be the same without you dropping in daily, bringing in donuts, bringing in candy, sitting in your office with those fake plants. And for those of you that don't know, his office is just a space on the floor with the drawing of a plant plastered on the wall. Oh, making everybody smile. You, sir, are one of a kind. And at the risk of getting mushy, much love and much respect. So, because we could never do it without you, we have a key to the town. Which means come on over and get it. Put your mask on or something. Yeah, we got to put our masks on. Now I'm crying. So you can use this key even after you're done. It's heavy.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's a bottle opener.
I love to see, yeah, it is a bottle opener. I'm so glad it's not what, Jeff? You know what it is, too.
Good? That's good forever. You can come in any time. You're going to sit here, but you come in here for that second. Because what? And you need to tell this story.
I will. I'll sit in your chair for a minute.
You sit in my chair and get comfortable.
Thank you, Your Worship, for those kind words, and Wade for yours, and maybe Cliffy. If this was 15 years ago, I wouldn't be turning on your mic right now. Your Worship gave me a beautiful pewter plaque of the Milton Horse, the gazebo on Water Street, and the South End Fountain, right? South End Fountain. And myself and Jeff, Deputy Mayor Boudreau, Richard Hurlbert, Councillor Pink, Ronnie LeBlanc, Leland Anthony, and some other people were invited to Montreal when we had the air service here, and the person that owned the service is one of the richest persons in Quebec. And I thought, turns out, I thought maybe it would be nice for us from the town of Yarmouth to give him a small token of our appreciation that we were invited to his chateau on the top of Mount Royal in Montreal. And if anybody knows Montreal, the richer you are, the higher you live on Mount Royal. Well, the Bronfmans were down there. The Labatts were over there. The Molsons were 3 rows down, and we were at the very top. Was it a $38 million house? It was a $38 million house with a $12 million renovation, and I brought the famous Yarmouth plaque. And in a Sobeys bag. And this gentleman is his family named the gas bag. And this gentleman had 29 people that worked at his house. He had 2 full-time chocolatiers, 2 full-time wine people, and he had 25 other people that worked at his house. And we were going in there for a formal sit-down supper, and I was bringing the plaque and the Sobeys bag. And we walked through the hallway, through the Renoirs, the Van Goghs, and I say, Jeff, just drop it on any desk that you see. Like, just give it to him. And we had, I think he was only about 40, but we always joke every time that something comes up that we should give him an appropriate gift. And this will be greatly appreciated. I will leave it in the paper like that, and I will leave it in the Sobeys bag. Darlene will be thrilled when this comes to our place. Councillor Hood.
Well, you're not going to get to keep that plastic bag very long because your Liberal Prime Minister just announced
Just took it. Oh, this one, I'm going to keep this one. I'm going to keep it.
But, you know, and speaking of Liberals and Tories, if there's a Liberal warhouse 1970s and a Tory warhorse, we're it. weren't we? And for many, many years thereafter. But I served on council in 80, was it 4?
I was the worst counselor of all time. I'll take
Well,
credit for
I
that.
don't know, but Kay was always quite circumspect, and she had a habit of quantifying or qualifying your movie choices at the hotel. And, you know, she was deciding whether, she was sort of like a censor, deciding whether or not they're appropriate or not.
That's
so
right.
we remember that.
Until
I
I
think
showed
didn't she ding you for $10.72?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Then I gave her what I ate for the week because there wasn't a per diem at that time, and then she gave me back the $10.72 and said, we won't pay for the meals.
So anyway, time went on, and Phil ran for mayor, and then in 2016, I took another tumble at this seat, and about 3 nights before the election, or 4, I'm at my house, and Joan had gone to bed, and I don't know, I was watching television or something. Might have been a Thursday night, might have been football, I don't know. But there was a knock on our door. And
election was on Saturday, it was Thursday night. It was after 10 o'clock.
Thursday night, yeah. So there was a knock on the door, and it was Philip. And he came in, and we sat down, started to talk. And I think we talked till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning about our town and how to make it better, didn't we?
Yep.
And I got elected, and I've had the best 4 years on council of my life. And Philip and I have been like this. And if that shows you how damn good politics is in our country, you know, the respect we have for each other, because we warred for years for our parties, right? Always forgot it after an election, but when they cranked up an election, we were at it.
Yeah.
And
It wasn't
I
pretty.
just thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the support you've given me, our councillors, the mayor, and our town for all the time you've done it, but most for me personally, these past 4 years. I really, really thank you.
You're welcome, Cliff. Thank you. I just want to say a couple things. Donnie, don't say anything about what I've done to you on Tuesday nights playing cards. Yeah, you're allowed to go. Cliff, I'm going to need a...
He's terrible.
Go ahead, Don. Cliff, I'm going to need a mic. Sir.
Terrible at cards, Phil. Terrible at cards. However, Phil represents Yarmouth, and he'll always be Yarmouth. Phil, you can move to the county, but you're never going to let us go. You're born and raised here. You're a true believer of the town can grow. You've proven that as a leader. You've proven that as knowing so many. You know more people than I've ever known in my whole life. You've represented us time and time again. You've made sure that I made it on time for meetings. Call me up, Donnie, where are you? That kind of stuff. I can say you definitely have been a mentor long before I came to council. You've been definitely, we're so proud of you, both in town and now that you're moving to the county. You're still going to be a Yarmouth boy and a Yarmouth town guy. So thank you for everything you've done for the town. Thank you for everything you've done for all of us as councillors. And thank you for leading our community to the new future.
Thank you, Don. Councillor McLeod.
I probably have known you, Phil, longer than anybody else around the table, having watched you grow up in the pharmacy. We always considered each other friendly competitors. A quick story. I remember when you were first elected in '85 with me and Cliff, yeah.
Dick Eldridge, Irene D'Entremont, Marge McCacken was the mayor.
Marge was the mayor, yeah. Anyway, we met had 2 or 3 meetings. I don't remember how many meetings. And one day I was in City Drugstore chatting, and Dad was there. And he said, asked me, how's my son Philip doing? I said, I don't know. He doesn't talk. So from those early days of just being quiet, you've gone over and promoted Yarmouth very nicely. And I know the others around the table have expressed that, and I only want to second the motion on that.
And Jim, same goes both ways, like friendly competitors. And Jim's family and my mother's family grew up very close to each other on the upper end of Pleasant Street, and Jim's sister used to babysit me. My mother would drop me off up to my grandmother's house up on the upper end of Pleasant Street, and Diane would come up and babysit me. So her first job, her first paying job ever, was babysitting myself and Allison, Elaine, Leon, Marilyn. Yeah. And her last job, she worked at the town of Yarmouth. She said, Phil, I started my first paycheck. I came because of you, and my last paycheck was signed by you. So I babysat you, basically the bookend of my whole career. So it's been a great ride. And Jim, thank you for the kind words. Even though I do tease you about certain things, you take it in jest. I've had a great time the last 4 years with everybody sitting around this table, and I am going to say a couple words afterwards about that, but thank you, Jim, very much. Councillor Steve Barry.
I just want to say a big thank you. Coming in as a rookie, you've always been there. You were there the night I was elected, and yeah, open phone line ever since. So
Nobody I love any more than your grandmother, baby.
There you go. So I just want to say thank you personally, but not only just what you do for me, but what you did for the town. Anyone who knows you from your time at City Drug, as mayor, councillor, whatever, you've always been a good guy. And I know you're into sports, so I guess I'll throw out the analogy to you. Phil Mooney, you are the real MVP. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Just like to say a couple words, maybe, and I'm going to start with Jeff and the entire team that works here at the town of Yarmouth. And I see we have some new people out back. Mark, Jerry's was here since I've started. Mike. The entire team at the town of Yarmouth, thank you for the advice, Jeff, that you have given me, the guidance, the encouragement, and the professionalism you have shown. Words are not enough to say, but what you have provided to me. Thank you. I will truly miss, Jeff, the day-to-day interactions we've had, and it's like her worship said, I've basically come in the town hall every day, Monday to Friday, the last 12 years. It's been fun. Out there in TV land, I know Linda Surratt is probably, I think bowling started again this week. And Linda used to bowl on Thursday nights with my mother. Linda, I got 2 words for you. You are a rock star, baby. Your class and your grace, Linda. Thank you for the support that you've given me. To everybody here on the second floor, Sandy, Sonny, Tracy, Janet, Jerry, Jody, Joelle, who's off right now, Sybil, Russell, and the newbies, Brittany and Linz, thank you. You made it fun, and you make Yarmouth a better place just because of your work. You work here. To my fellow councillors, the first termers, the second termers, and this term, Donnie, Jim, Steve, Wade. From what I've seen over the last 4 years, you all deserve to be reelected. From the hard work that you put in and the effort that I've seen every day at this council meeting. Councillor Hood, special thank you to you. You mentioned it earlier, but to say when you burn a bridge, it's pretty hard to go back. We burned several bridges, and a couple out in Kemp, right? And a couple in Kemp, and they were, I wouldn't say they were burned, they were scorched, and then they were bombed. And we came back from that, and you are a true friend. We've talked numerous times over the last 4 years, and all about the betterment of Yarmouth. You all deserve to be reelected, and I really feel that. Your worship, where do I start? You're a leader, you're a mentor, you're a lightning rod, you're a colleague, you're a trendsetter. You're a regional, provincial, and you're a national voice. But you're really a friend to me. You know something that she's a mother, and you know something you really want to get her with all the nicknames and all the handles you can put on her. You want to see her light up? You're a grandmother, right? And that happened this last term. But to me, you're a really true friend. I only hope you learned as much from myself as I've learned from you. We cannot go backwards. This is to the people of the town of Yarmouth. We need you at the helm the next 4 years. And I will still do everything within my powers to make that happen. To the people of Yarmouth, Thank you for the support over the last 12 years. I'll appreciate it, the confidence that you put in myself. We came here in 1938, our family, and a couple weeks before my father passed away, he said some really good words. He said, Yarmouth has treated us very well. And he did it. Yarmouth has treated us as well. Treated us really well, better than we deserve. I'd like to wish good luck to everybody this election, and mostly to my wife there. Supported me, loved me, and helped me, so thank you, everybody. Motion to approve the invoices. Councillor Barry, seconded by your worship. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Date of next meeting is the second Thursday in November. Linz, what's the date? November the 12th. Can we have nothing in? One in-camera item? Joe, you want to say something, buddy? We'll get you, Joe. One in-camera item. Motion to go in camera. All those in favor? Aye.